Right then, people, we are live. It's Trickstar Radio. We're returning to the office. It's been a long time since we actually recorded in here, so I thought, you know what? First time we come back into this room, nice and bright, everything's looking a bit different. I had to bring back an old school Trickstar regular, one of the OGs of Brighton's kind of bass scene, shall we say? Man Like Zero's in the building. How are you doing, sir?
Yes, mate. Nice to see you. It's been fucking good to be back, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, like the first, like when you first walked in, the first thing you literally said was, "Oh, it doesn't feel any different."
It doesn't feel any different. It smells the exact same. It's still unbearably hot. But apparently things work now, which is good to know.
Definitely, man.
Definitely a lot brighter. Doesn't feel like
I mean, literally, this room we've got about 3 lights in front of us. I don't think I've ever seen 3 lights on.
I feel like I don't know what's about to happen. It feels like something like it's about to happen. Right? I'm getting casted for something.
There's a cupboard in the corner that's got about 6 people in it. All about to kind of roll
lovely.
Out. I mean, kind of as you're down though, you're down today to play a show. I believe it's at the Volks. I believe.
Yeah, Volks tonight. It's a little sat down thing. I did one a few weeks ago. Pretty mad lineup as well. It was me, Freddie Martin, Bush Baby, Tyke New Light. Which for a free party, so you don't really get much better than that, do you?
I mean, kind of with the whole thing of socially distanced raves. Then obviously, with yourself, like obviously having played one, did you enjoy it as an experience from a DJ perspective?
Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Apart from the fact everyone had it really loud, and I was quite late. Everyone had turned it up, and we turned the speakers. If the Volks manager watches this, I'm sorry, mate, but it was just a bit ridiculous. But basically, everyone turned the speakers around. As soon as I get on, he comes around, turns it down, turns the speakers down, and then obviously all the crowd's looking at me, being like, "What are you doing? Why are you turning it down?" I was like, "We can't. There's a fucking." He's getting well angry, and then he kept turning it up again. I didn't even turn it up, and the guy comes over, and he looks at me, goes, "Right, that's it." He storms over, and he just picks up the speaker, pulls the plugs out, and fucking just walks off.
Okay.
This is during that about 10 minutes into my set.
is this a day in the life of Zero?
This is just I was like, this is just typical, innit? Everyone else has played properly, like shelled it down, and I've got like a booth monitor facing me, and everyone else, all the crowd was looking at me, being like, "What are you doing?" Sick, great. Great start.
I mean, with that, I follow you on Insta, as a lot of people do, and it definitely feels like you always seem to find yourself in these
stupid predicaments.
Like what? Just to kind of go through dances. Like, what's one of the weirdest things you've seen in a dance? But I mean, pre-COVID, we're talking.
Honestly, I don't, like it's honestly hard to say. Like from the main dances that I played were from like September 2019 till like that was the kind of craziest period till like March. Mate, I don't even know. Like they're not that weird. Like some of the raves aren't as weird as you think. Cause they're still quite niche shows in a sense. I'm not playing like I haven't really played many festivals yet. And I feel like festivals is where you kind of see like the absolute booty
you see
shit.
The stuff.
Yeah, like if you walk around Boomtown, like that's it. That's where you're gonna see some bizarre stuff. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything on top of my head. I might have to come back to you on that. Innit?
Yeah, I was gonna say because obviously following you on Insta, there was this series we saw pretty much in Brighton to do with the alley. Was it called the alley?
The alley. Yeah,
the alley.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when did this start? Because I feel like it's something Brighton's now missing.
Yeah, honestly, do you know what people? That's actually really funny. That is quite funny actually. When I played at Primworks last year, I just played one of my craziest sets of my life, and I walked out the crowd. And I didn't hear a whole great set. I just hear, "Mate, bring back the alley." And I was like, "Yes, my guy." I was like, "Do you know what? I actually would prefer to hear that." But it's so funny. I was like, and that was kind of obviously that was over a year ago now. So a lot of people don't really know that whole thing. But basically, what it was, I'll explain it for everyone. It was literally just I had this perfect view of this really dodgy alleyway. Right in the centre of town in the lanes, and one day I was just filming it, and I just always, every time I went in to cook something in the kitchen, I just saw some absolute bizarre, like crazy crackhead behaviour, like Brighton at its finest, basically.
I think this is where I've got the idea that you just seem to find yourself in these weird situations. I mean, I'm assuming a few of the things you've seen down the alley are probably not fit for kind of radio consumption.
No, not at all. Not at all. Just,
but I mean, kind of with that, obviously you're not in Brighton at the moment.
No.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, of course I do. Every time I walk out the station, I just smile. Like just then, I just look at it and I go, "Yeah, come on, then." It's always great to come down. I love it here.
I'm not surprised, man. I mean, it is. I think especially for, especially for the kind of period you were living here as well. It was definitely almost like a kind of renaissance. I feel with kind of UK based music, not necessarily even just the sound, but the producers, the people involved in the circles. Like, how would you describe your sort of experience in Brighton? Because you came here as a student.
Yeah, 100%. That's you hit the nail on the head. I feel like when. Not just saying because I was down here. Obviously, I came up through Brighton. Like I was no one when I first came here. I studied at Sussex. I started in 2015, like late 2015, and I only started doing bass music like in start of second year. So kind of like 2017 or kind of just late 2016, early 2017. And I think from 2017 to 2019, those were the days, man. It was just so good. Like there were so many people down here. We had Bush Baby, we had Freddie Mario, Tyke, Hayden, you, all the South Point boys, everything, and it was like cool, like this crazy little community. And every weekend we'd be in the Arch. Yeah. I remember one time I think I went to the Arch every weekend, like Saturday, Sunday for about 6 months straight. And I spent my life in that bloody backstage, horrendous, like not green room, like it was just
the little like brick bit.
Yeah, just like it doesn't even have, it's not a name. It's just like
the bit.
It's awful, but so good. I miss it. I just complain about it all the time.
Kind of with that, obviously you've played a lot of shows here in Brighton, as I feel most kind of Brighton-based producers have. A lot of the time, there seems to be such a market for it here that it seems to be almost like a bit of a thing where if you're not playing in Brighton moderately regularly, like it seems a little bit weird. Yeah. But like with that, are there any shows from down here that really kind of stand out for yourself?
Ooh, Brighton was always a tricky one. I think the early shows that I did down here were actually the best ones. Like when I was first starting. Oh yeah, actually when Mono, R.I.P. Mono. Like I'm sure it's another one of them things. It's like if you know, you know. And I feel like that's a lot of things down here in Brighton. Like Mono was the craziest little club. It was only about for a year, and it was just like this. I called it the tinnitus tunnel. A lot of other people called it that as well.
Try saying that after you've been in there for about 6 hours.
Yeah. You what? Honestly, like it was just a function one, like back to front, tiny little tunnel. Capacity was about 200. Like if they pushed it, like 200 would be like a squeeze, and it was insane. I remember just playing like shows coming up there. Like I was getting billed like literally right at the bottom of these things as well. But I think I did one with like Leveler. Obviously jump up, kind of like legend really in a way. He's been about for time, and it was just loose. I was so good in there. So yeah, the early shows in like 2017 when I didn't really know how to mix, I hardly had. I'm like my sets were literally like 3 0 tunes and loads of other tunes. But it's the complete opposite now. Because I was just starting off, but those are the days, man.
Definitely, man. I can definitely feel like the nostalgia kind of flooding back.
Yeah, of course.
Especially coming down here to Trickstar as well, because you had a residency on the station.
Yeah.
Like obviously with that coming together, like how did you find that as part of your kind of growth then? Because obviously it seemed to be quite like not like an overnight thing, but it seemed to be there was a point where suddenly things just started to take off. You were playing the show every week. You had shows almost popping up around the country. The tunes were starting to really kind of hit some serious traction online. Like what part did the radio show play in that?
A massive part in terms of my actual ability, because I've never owned decks. I've never had a pair of decks in my life, and I still don't, because I just learned how to mix down here every week, and I learned it with other places with my mates, like little controllers and stuff. But coming down here every week, mainly live streaming it onto Facebook as well. That was a huge thing, wasn't it? When Facebook didn't used to absolutely destroy live streams.
When they weren't just
just
like
waiting. Literally, and it was so good because you'd have like a little community, like get about 70 odd people watching at a time, which I don't think I could even get 70 people watching now if I just did a live stream. So it was like, it was just really good, and just being down here every week again the whole kind of community vibes. And then I was just making, and obviously I was at uni and I was doing a relatively simple music production course, like music technology, and it was really like quite stress free, to be honest. And I think that's what helped me a lot, because I was in this music environment for 3 years straight, and I just had all this free time to just make tunes, and I just literally spent every single day just making tunes.
Well, it definitely feels like you've kind of, I don't want to say you've hit like that echelon now, because that means there's nowhere else to go, and there's always new places to go, you know. But I feel like you are now at a point where people know when there's a zero tune on the way, what they know they're going to be getting something good. They know they're getting something which is going to be ammunition, shall we say. Kind of with that then, obviously, with yourself, your sound spread around the UK quite quickly. Like, outside of Brighton, like, how do the zero tunes tend to get received?
Pretty well, man. To be honest, better. Like, if anything, way better. Brighton was a really tricky one sometimes playing shows.
I think people underestimate Brighton as a crowd.
It's hard. It's hard to smash it here sometimes, because it's really tricky. It's not a massive like people. There's a lot of people here that don't know that they want it, and I think people, when they hear some like bizarre like sounding tunes or whatever, that it doesn't go off as well as if you were in like Sheffield or something or anywhere. But I think that's a lot of things. Like I think that's all part of actually kind of you're developing your sound as a whole. Like when I used to play Tank, I remember the first ever Tank show I played. Crowd literally were like zombies. Like no one really cared. No one really knew who I was. No one really kind of heard that she like.
Tank's a big old venue as well.
Yeah. And it was a big show. It was me, New Bass, and Deps, and it was the first time I'd ever played there. And I kept on hearing Tank's this crazy venue, and I came away from it being like, it wasn't that great. But over time, the bigger I got, and the more fans I gained, and obviously the more I played at Tank. Big up Jamie Duggan, because he books me there every he used to book me there every like three times a year. He'd like literally be half my shows are in Sheffield at Bassfest. So shout out to Jamie Duggan every time, because he literally he brings a lot of people through, and he always supports the up and comers. which I've got a lot of time for. But yeah, I guess it's just like, I think the whole like people reacting to these tunes and stuff kind of just comes with time. You've just got to work at it.
Definitely. I think there's a level of almost, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but when you have that confidence in your tunes as well, and you can kind of see it from a performance angle, and that you can almost see it in the way you promote stuff online as well. You can see when someone's going, "Hi, got this new tune," it almost feels like it's an event now when Zero tune drops.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think you've got to do that. I think you've got to put a lot of, it's all about like branding and kind of making people want more, and you've got to make people feel like every single tune is a special occasion. If you just churn out tunes, you don't really put any effort in. If you just drop them and then forget about them or whatever, it takes away the kind of novelty. I think that's a good reason why you should keep tunes unreleased for so long. And people hate it that I do that. Well, some people do. Some people don't really understand. They're like, why don't you just release it? It's like, because you can't. You've got to build the hype. You've got to build hype behind tunes. Otherwise, they won't do as well. In my personal opinion, obviously you can drop tunes without any support, and sometimes they do really well. Like, for a good example, Sammy Virgie, Never Let You Go, he just put that on SoundCloud, and it like one of his biggest tunes,
and it exploded.
And it's like, you can play that in a dance.
We would
now.
Still be hearing it dance.
I'm gonna play it tomorrow.
Amazing. Well, there we go. I mean, also with that, then obviously you've been someone who's kind of obviously grown up. Not physical, kind of to an extent, but kind of grown up as a musician, shall we say?
100%.
During this kind of explosion of UK-based music, you've been like right at the epicenter of it. Like when you first started producing, it was when it was like proper starting to take off, and you've kind of been there, gone through the whole sort of sequence of it. so like with that. Obviously, it's a bit of a cliche question, but obviously people are going to be looking, and especially fans of yours are going to be looking at you and kind of going, like, I want to follow in that that sort of route. Like, what would you kind of say what your advice would be? A little bit kind of things that people wouldn't expect to hear. Like, what are the little things you'd expect? You tell people.
I'm not really sure. I've done questions like that before on my Instagram, and genuinely, my biggest bit of advice could just be do your own thing and don't try and follow other people, because that's one thing you can't like. Every tune I get sent, literally 99% of them just sound the same, and it's not even like a sound that it's not even a sound that I've ever made. It's like this kind of weird, I don't even know what it is, but
I think I know the sound you mean.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
quite neutral. To an extent.
It's just nothing new, nothing interesting, and that's one thing. You've got to just be your own artist. You can't just expect to like. It will only go so far. If you make a tune that sounds like a Skepsis or a Tyke New Light or a Distinct or a Chris Lorenzo, they've done that. They've been doing that for years. And you've got to remember as well, these tunes that like, say Tyke New Light, he put a new tune out today, or like last week, he probably made that about 8 months ago. You can't, and his sound now, his unreleased tunes are going to be something you've never heard before.
Definitely.
And you've got to remember that. If you're then copying that, it might take you another 8 months to copy that sound. You're then a year and a half behind in terms of this kind of like progression, and you're just churning out tunes that people were making 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting way of looking at it, kind of going, and it's a very good point, because I feel to an extent when people listen to tunes for the first time and they pop up and there's not really been much of a campaign, you kind of go, oh, they must have done this weekend or something like that. But it's never the case. It's so rare you'll see something finished and released there and there. Occasionally, very, very occasionally, people will kind of go, you know what, we're doing it this way. But for the most part, it definitely feels like there's at least a sort of 3-month period.
Yeah, at least, literally, especially at the moment. Like most of my tunes, like so recently, that the Boozy actually has come out relatively quickly. I made that at the start of lockdown, like April, and that's still not that quick, seeing as it came out in October.
That's still like a good 7-8 months.
Yeah.
Like.
So, but the thing is, Window actually only vocaled it. Like in the space of him vocaling it and me sorting the vocals, it was about a month or two. So that was because I made the tune, and it took him ages to get into the studio just for relatively like COVID related reasons and stuff. But once he got it down, I was like, yes, this has got to come out.
I mean, we've got to talk about Boozy.
Yeah,
Obviously,
course,
I did a reaction video to it. I saw it pop up.
Big ups for that. It was sick.
And it was one of those ones when I was watching it for the first time, and I went, you know what? It's Window and Zero. Something hilarious is going to take place in this. What the toilet scene?
Yeah, what a scene! You couldn't get your head around that. I loved it.
Do you know what it was? I was watching it and kind of going, you know what? I knew something like this would happen.
Yeah.
And the one I'm going to ask is, was it planned?
Yeah, of course it was. Like, so the thing is with that, we wanted to do something a bit more tasteful with that. We wanted to do it over the top of 2 cubicles and kind of like, so you know, in there's the video, I think it's Slow Tie Doorman, where he's like, it's in a club. It's sort of similar settings, club. It's all like smoky and euphoric and whatever. And it goes from cubicle to cubicle. Someone's like lips in some birds. Someone's doing drugs. Someone's smoking a fag. Someone's doing graffiti. And then Slow Tie gets like pulled down the toilet. We wanted something like that between me and Window. One of us like just like, I don't know, on the toilet, or one of us like having a fag in the toilet or something, or whatever. Just something a bit like something a bit loose basically. But we couldn't find anywhere. Like, and this was the weekend that this rule of 6 got introduced, so it was a nightmare. We were getting kicked out of places, left, right, and centre. We couldn't find any toilets that were next to each other. And then we just found this one. It was like we saw these 2 toilets, and we were like, right, we've got to do this now. Like, fucking sank the beer, went downstairs, and we just, I remember as well, Duncan said apparently someone, like, we had this speaker, obviously, to, like, so all our words are in time. Duncan's going between the cubicles, and apparently someone walked in, opened the door, and walked straight back out.
Can you imagine what was going through his head?
Goes, nah. It's so funny.
I mean, where was that filmed?
That was just in Nottingham.
That was in
you were right. Yeah.
I remember watching it and going, I'm trying to work out where this has all been done. Was it done all over the course of one day as
Literally, yeah. Me and Duncan, so the guy who did my Boomtown after movie, filmed a few sets from me as well when clubs were open. He's a wicked, check him out, Duncan SL on Instagram. Crazy videographer and filmmaker. He directed the whole thing as well. Obviously, me and Window had our own creative input, but he basically, if it wasn't for him, me and Window would just be fucking headless chickens around Nottingham, like pissed out our heads, not knowing what's but we needed Duncan there, and he's sober now as well, so it's even better. He was
just very clear throughout the entire process.
Got it all sorted. We got there at midday, and we finished filming by about midnight.
Amazing, man. So again, that's a good turnaround as well. Like over the course of one day, that being getting the entire video done, and obviously it's done pretty well across different platforms.
It's done really well. It's hit some playlists that I never thought I'd even be in. Like it got massive dance hits the other day, which is like 1 million people, which I only got playlisted like at the start of this year. Not even my EP did. It was like, I think my tune with or Skepsis or Turno got in a playlist, and that was the first one I'd ever got really. Like Paper Thrills or Gent and Dragon didn't even get that, so I was like, yeah, that's pretty gassed. So to get that, I was buzzing.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. I feel kind of getting that. I mean, again, this is quite an artist-centric thing, but getting that kind of email through, going, this has been added to that. Like, when you saw that pop up, what was the thing that went through your head?
I didn't actually see that. I wish I had, because that would get me. That's the more surprising thing. But my managers just put it. I was at Thorpe Park actually. I was just as you are. I was just in a queue for Thorpe Park, about to go on Colossus. What a ride! And then he just goes, "You've just been," and he said it, he didn't say it in a gassed way as well. He goes, "We've been added." He was like, "We've been added to this place," like ... in disbelief. But I was like, "Fuck, that's crazy." But I was already like adrenaline pumping through me anyway. So I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then the next day when I woke up and I was like, "Oh, that's huge. That's huge. I'm buzzing."
Awesome, man. I mean, with all of this, I think the general kind of point we're getting is that there's a real level of progression taking place, even during this lockdown situation. Obviously, watching it from an outside perspective, and obviously kind of being there when you first started. The decrepit fossil that I'm slowly becoming. It's been really good to see that growth and see the consistency of that growth as well.
Thank you.
It's never been a case for you, I feel, where you've kind of started and then gone, okay, we'll ride this for a while. No. It's always been the next thing.
You can't do that. I was going to tweet about that the other day, actually. That's another bit of advice. You cannot take your foot off the pedal. You can, but it's not a good idea. I feel if you take your foot off the pedal, you can't expect to go anywhere. No, you can't. You can't expect to just bounce back and you've got to keep going. It's all about momentum, and that's the thing, especially with show stopping. The thing with live shows, they're so good for just keeping things bubbling away, even if you're not making as much music. If you're playing massive shows, everyone loves just seeing clips from Raves.
Of course, you get the clips, you get the posters, you get
people just fans, like new fans following it every week, and it actually, you don't realise until it's stopped. You don't actually realise how kind of like, what's the word?
Would you say you're quite dependent on that then? Not necessarily dependent, but would you say you're...
Not me personally, but I know a lot of artists actually were, and they didn't realise they were, and it's quite obvious to see that a lot of artists have just kind of dropped off over lockdown, which is a shame, because the one thing you shouldn't do is stop working. You should be thinking now, what can I do to, like, how can I stay in the game? How can I keep things bubbling along? How can I, like, combat this lack of, like, what's the exposure every week? What can I do that's different? What can I do? Obviously making tunes releasing tunes every month. That's in my opinion what everyone should be doing anyway, like, if you are serious about it. But a lot of people have just thought, oh, COVID, whatever, I'll just wait till everything's back to normal, then I'll get back on the horse. And I personally don't think that was a good idea at all.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement, man. I think what lockdown has kind of shown to me is, from a personal perspective, is the idea that there's always something else you could try. There's always some other 100%. Angle you can take. There's always something with that. And again, it's really kind of interesting to hear you break that down and hear kind of more than anything else, the kind of eagerness to do the next thing. And with that being the question, I'm going to throw in a nice tidy radio segue here.
Lovely. And
kind of go, what is the next thing on the horizon? We can talk about.
I don't even know. Like, I've got some. I've literally just dropped a mix today. Well, it's coming out at 5 o'clock for Electric. He's some Canadian guy. He's been around for time. So that's just a little mini mix I've done. But I've actually got, but basically what I'm trying to do at the moment, this is this new thing. Like you say, you got what can you do new? I'm trying to do some radio tunes. I'm trying to make some like commercial stuff because, like, at the moment, people, personally, I've made loads of club bangers, but I don't want to drop them because I just think
what's the if something's meant for something that you can't get?
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of an example. It's like dropping a World Cup tune in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Like it makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, people will still probably lap it up, but it's not going to like hit its full potential. And these, like, I've got an EP basically. That's what I said. The next thing is I'm going to do a really big EP. I want it to be like a proper game changer in a way. And I've got all the tunes ready. I've got 5 or 6 tunes. I'm going to whittle it down to 5 probably. But in the meantime, I'm trying to secure these, like, I want to get some major label releases, really. That's what I've been trying to do. I've been chatting to this guy at Polydor recently, and we were back and forth loads, and we're trying to make these kind of, like, viral, slightly commercial, a bit cheesy, but still kind of...
Still zero.
Yeah, it does, and that's what I wanted, and that's what I'm doing, and I have done one. So, you know, Bush Baby and Sammy did that remix for Noisy.
Yeah, of course.
Me and Noisy have done a tune. I'd actually used one of their top lines. I got it through Polydor. And I'd never heard of them, but then like 2 weeks later, this remix got released, and I was like, oh, these guys are obviously like, I didn't know they were working with Bush Baby and Sammy, and now we finished off this tune, and it's this really cool, just kind of like, it's this sound I want to bring back. It's like this 2005 to 2010 radio sound. It's kind of like wearing my Rolex, kind of like body rocks kind of feel.
Almost like sort of post electro funky sort of era.
But I've kind of like incorporated, made it a bit heavier, made it like put it over a proper.
Well, I mean, we can pretty much say bonkers, can't we? Really?
In a way, yeah.